Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jarrett Culver, and today I'm going to do an episode doing a 2019 mock draft. Since the draft is Thursday, I find it fit that it's a good idea to put out my projections, of course, with the NBA season just ending and the finals coming to a close. Congratulations to the Toronto Raptors and, of course, Drake, right? But today I've got a special guest. I've got me a co-host today, Mr. Marshall Elson. Hello, Mr. Marshall Elson. How you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing good, and I appreciate you inviting me on this podcast. I would like to think that it's because of my basketball resume, but I know that the main reason I'm on is because I'm friends with you, so I appreciate it, and I'll do my best.
It really is. You're on here because of your basketball knowledge, of course. You're my basketball correspondent, so I go to you for a lot of my basketball stuff. So, like I said, we're going to go through the NBA draft, mock draft. We're just going to go back and forth and pick. As we pick, of course, we're going to give an analysis of each player that we pick and why we chose them that team. We're going to pretend to be the GM of that team, basically, and we'll also give a player comp as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give you the order of the draft, and I'll have the first pick, he'll have second, I'll have third, and so on and so forth. So we'll just alternate back and forth. So your draft order for this year, of course, the Pelicans got number 1. Memphis Grizzlies, they have the second pick. New York Knicks, my Knicks got the third pick. The Pelicans just picked up the fourth pick in a trade for Anthony Davis from the Lakers. Cleveland has the fifth pick. The sixth pick, the Phoenix Suns have that. Number 7, Chicago Bulls have that. Number 8, Atlanta Hawks. Number 9, Washington Wizards. Number 10, the Atlanta Hawks again. 11, Minnesota Timberwolves. Number 12, Charlotte Hornets. And 13, Miami Heat. And last but not least, to the lottery, the Boston Celtics. So I'm excited about this episode. I've been looking forward to it for a while. So without further ado, let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add real quick is that, we're going to try to give you a unique perspective with this mock draft. If you want to go look and see what ESPN, Fox, different other CBS, other websites have for their mock draft, you can type that in, but we're not going to base it off of that. We're just going to base it off of what we think and try to give you a unique perspective and maybe some stats, some info that you can't find anywhere else. So without further ado, first pick, Kedron.
Right, and we're going to do team needs. So we're going to be GMs today. How about that? I wish I was getting paid like a GM, but the Pelicans, my first pick. I'm gonna be honest, and I think Zion Williamson is obviously going to be my first pick, and why? Not only because in my opinion, he may not be the best player in the draft, but he has the most potential out of any player in this draft. Zion, obviously, he's a young cat at 18. He played for Duke. His position in college was at forward. He's 6'6", 6'7" on some sites, but he's really 6'6", I'd say. 285 pounds and can jump 45 inches. And I wish I could jump 45 inches. So some strengths about Zion, of course. Zion's explosive. We all know that. We've seen him do 360 dunks, fast break. He even ripped his shoe. I mean, Nike was happy about that, right? But his vision is impeccable. I mean, his passing ability is pretty dang good for a guy that's a forward and a pretty heavy forward at that. His motor is like no other. He can play with the best of them, honestly. His rebounding skills are impeccable. And his finishing skills and his athleticism are something of different nature. So, obvious weakness for him, something he'll work on in his career, of course, is his shooting ability. He's not a terrible shooter, but it's definitely something he can work on because he's not known to be able to pull up and shoot. And with the way that the NBA is gone and where it's at, it's not a game for a driver anymore. It's more of your shooter like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. So, if he works on that, he'll be unstoppable. Kind of like Giannis. Giannis is the same way. Or Giannis. Sorry, excuse me. Everybody jokes on me for that. Giannis, same way. If Giannis gets a jump shot, he'll be impeccable too. Or he'll be a next-level player in that case. But, yes, Zion, and he just needs to work on a shot, and I think he's good. Also, a stat I have, his player efficiency rating is at 40.8, and that is the highest in the last decade for a prospect. So Anthony Davis was the most recent one with the highest. So if that tells you anything about his pro career, a player like Anthony Davis, he's going to have a good career then. So my comparison for him is Larry Johnson or Sean Kemp. Those would be my comparisons for Zion, just because of his athleticism. Of course, we know Sean Kemp, the great supersonic player who could jump out of the gym. Larry Johnson, grandmama, what a great player he was for the Hornets. So that's my first pick, Zion Williamson. Next pick is going to be Memphis. On the clock, Mr. Marshall Elson.
Before I get to the Memphis pick, I have a question for you about Zion.
Go ahead.
If you had to bet money, do you think Zion's career will turn out closer to LeBron James or Julius Randle?
Right now, I'd say Julius Randle, simply because Julius Randle is more of a guy that takes it is more of a paint guy. He's more of a basket guy.
Right.
LeBron James, he's developed a jump shot over his career, and I think that took him to the next level. Because when he was young, LeBron was just athletic. I mean, nobody knew LeBron could shoot the way he did. But he's developed a post game, and he's developed a shot. So if I was to bet money today, it'd be Julius Randle, which is probably going to be his teammate. So yeah, that's my answer for that one. Good question.
Well, I'm glad you had the first pick because I don't know the answer. I could see him turning out to be kind of a Julius Randle type player, but I could also see LeBron potential. So I'm glad you had that one. I'm not really sure how to rate Zion. His efficiency field goal percentage was 70.8 in college, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
22.6 points, 8.9 rebounds per game. I mean, he's a star player, no doubt.
No doubt in my mind about that one.
But the number one player on my board, because I think he's a guarantee, is Ja Morant.
Gotcha.
He is an incredible player, and he definitely passes the eye test when you watch him play. He can get to his spots. He can create. And I like him because his teammates weren't the most talented, but he still got a lot out of them. He averaged 10 assists per game. And only one other player since 2000 has averaged 10 assists per game in college. And despite passing the ball a lot, he still averaged 24.5 points per game, which is incredible. As well.
Wow.
So he was first in assists in the NCAA and then seventh in points per game, which is incredible. And the last player to do that high in both categories was Trae Young last year. Trae Young led the NCAA in assists, and he led the NCAA in points. And we saw how great of a rookie season he had. So imagine a more athletic, more dominant ball handler in Ja Morant, and that's what you get. And he actually shot a better percentage from three than Trae Young did.
Oh, wow.
I know Trae Young shot more threes, but still, Ja Morant averaged 36.3% from three, and Trae Young was right at 36%. From the field, Ja Morant 50%, and Trae Young 42%.
Is that your player comp? Is it Trae Young?
My player comp for Ja Morant is Allen Iverson.
Okay.
And usually when I do player comps, I try to do something. I look at the size and the weight, points per game, and all of that. But with this one, I just had to go based on eye test. And when I was growing up watching Allen Iverson on the Sixers, it was amazing how he could just take over a game, get to his spots. He had a lot of confidence, and that's what I see when I watch Ja Morant play. So I know this is bold, but I'm going to predict a future MVP award in Ja Morant.
That's a bold statement. You heard it here first. Recurrent thoughts. I haven't heard anybody compare him to Allen Iverson yet, so that's a very insightful opinion and a very authentic one. So Allen Iverson is the player comp for Ja Morant, so that's a good one right there. Allen Iverson, MVP award in his future. So
MVP.
So. That's a good one right there. One thing about Ja Morant, I must say, like I said in my pick for the Pelicans, I think Zion is the best player with potential, but as far as best player in the draft right now, I think Ja Morant is. So Memphis is in a really good spot because they basically control what they want to do here. Obviously, every team controls what they want to do, but if I'm a team, I'm happy that I'm Memphis because I get the best player in the draft, in my opinion. So, third pick is going to be the New York Knicks, my Knicks, and of course, also let me go back to Ja Morant, the Allen Iverson comp. You think he's going to like practice?
I do think he will like practice more than Allen Iverson, but they are both gamers and they enjoy the game more than practice, which I agree with.
Hey, we talking about practice, man. But going on to the third pick, the New York Knicks. My Knicks, we struggled this past season. Obviously, we were hoping for the first pick, and we even tanked, obviously, for the first pick. So if that tells you anything, our luck is running out. So hopefully we can turn it around in this draft. Porzingis a few years ago, Kristaps, we just traded him this past season. I missed the big guy, but I think it was smart for the Knicks long term to do that. Dennis Smith Jr. was a great pickup out of that trade, and I also think DeAndre Jordan was a great pickup out of that trade, and I hope we re-sign him this offseason for Mitchell Robinson's sake. Mitchell Robinson is a young, good player. Kevin Knox is going to be a good player. And the Knicks, we are going to be okay, Knick Nation. We're going to be okay. But my pick for us, the Knicks, I'd have to go with R.J. Barrett. And for one, R.J. Barrett is such a good scorer, man. I don't know, but oh my goodness, I love his scoring ability. He's young at 18. Like I said, he played at Duke with Zion. He's 6'6". He's a two guard, or really a guard. His wingspan is 6'9", which is really, really good. He's got pretty good arm length.
And a standing reach of 8'6".
Impressive, right? That is impressive. 22.6 points per game in college, 7.6 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, and from three he was 30.8%. So a good shooter for sure. His playmaking ability in the pick and roll game is second to none in my opinion. He was basically the alpha of this team this year. Although Zion got a lot of the publicity, I think R.J. Barrett was the alpha dog of this team, and his work ethic, they say it's really, really good. So he went on ESPN a few days ago or last week and talked about why he wanted to be a Knick, and man, we need those personalities in New York, somebody that wants to be there. So obviously he has weaknesses. One thing he struggles with is consistency, and that's something I want to see more of if he is a Knick. Can he score consistently? Can he play consistently? Can he give effort consistently? Can he shoot consistently? That's one thing that I look forward to. Last season, before this season happened with the magic of Zion Williamson, he was the projected number one player in this draft, so I feel good about him falling to the Knicks. So if I was to compare him to a player, and I'm going off the top of the head with this one, if I was to compare him to a player at 6'6" with that scoring ability and pretty good athleticism, I'm going to have to go with Dwayne Wade with a jump shot. So that's my comparison, just because like I said, his scoring ability, and he's got a little bit better range than Dwayne Wade. So that's my comp with athleticism and everything. And even I could say Victor Oladipo as well, because Oladipo is a really good player to me. So that's my number 3 pick, New York Knicks. There you go.
I like that pick a lot. RJ has a lot of confidence, and I totally see why the Knicks would take him. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Zion Williamson shot the ball, and I know he was injured some of the season, but he shot the ball 435 times. 435. Guess how many times RJ Barrett shot the ball this year?
Well, I'm going to take a crack, even though I'm looking right at it. 237 times, right?
No, RJ Barrett shot the ball 702 times.
Oh, my goodness.
And just for reference, John Morant shot the ball 531. I just talked about Zion. Jarrett Culver shot the ball 551 times. DeAndre Hunter shot the ball 394 times. So RJ Barrett, 700 field goal attempts. And I know people could say that's a ball hog, but to me that shows a lot of confidence.
And that's the alpha dog mentality right there.
Absolutely. And Duke had a lot of pressure on them, and they needed someone to step up and be confident, and I felt like RJ did that. So my comp for him is actually kind of a worse version, but a left-handed Kobe Bryant.
Okay, the Mamba.
Someone who loves to shoot and not afraid of the moment. So a good pick there by the Knicks. The 4th pick goes to the Pelicans. Mm-hmm. They just traded Anthony Davis to the Lakers, and part of the deal was getting this 4th pick. So this one took me a while. I like Jarrett Culver a lot, but I also like Cam Reddish, and I was deciding on who to pick here for the Pelicans. Who's the better long-term prospect? And my decision, Cam Reddish, his player comp for me is Paul George, and then Jarrett Culver's player comp for me is Jimmy Butler. So it was kind of like deciding between Paul George and Jimmy Butler, and to me that's pretty easy. I would take Paul George.
Right.
Cam Reddish, 6'8", 218 pounds, and I know his shooting percentage is not as high as people would have liked. He was ranked the third player in high school, and he disappointed a little this year. But keep in mind, he had to play with Zion, RJ, a lot of pressure on Duke. He was the third guy. I think he's really going to come into his own in the NBA. Some stats to kind of prove my point a little bit. Cam Reddish, great three-point shooter to me. If you look at his form, it's smooth. He's got a lot of confidence in it, and he shoots from really far out. And a lot of times at the end of a possession, Duke would get him the ball and he would shoot a fadeaway three as time expired. So I think that hurt his percentage a little bit. But let's take away the percentage and just look at how many made threes he had this year. And just for reference, during their freshman year, these are some other great shooters and how many they made. So Devin Booker's freshman year of college, he made 58 threes. Klay Thompson, his freshman year, he made 68 threes. Kevin Durant made 82 threes. Paul George made 63 three-pointers his freshman year. And Cam Reddish this year made 89.
Oh, wow.
So that's more than all those guys. And I know his percentage wasn't incredible. It was 33.3%. But like I said, shot clock, a lot of pressure threes in his face at the end of shot clock, and he was trying to bail them out on a lot of possessions. If he can figure this out, which I think he will with a good shooting coach in the NBA because the form is already there, I think he can be an incredible three-point shooter that you can't defend. He's 6'8", he rises up, 8.9 standing reach.
7 foot wingspan, by the way.
7 foot wingspan, and he could be incredible. And another thing too, if you're going to talk about the percentage, in the NCAA tournament, he shot 7 of 16 from 3. So that's 43.7%. So he did get better as the year went on, and when it really mattered, he made them. He made the game-winning 3 against Florida State, had some clutch threes against Louisville, and then the most popular one is probably the three-pointer he had at the top of the key versus UCF in the tournament. He's clutch. I see the potential. I see the strengths. Some people have compared him to Tracy McGrady in high school, and I think you're going to see more of that in the NBA. But my player comp for him is Paul George, really similar size, good three-point shooting form. So my fourth pick for the Pelicans, and they need three-point shooting, is Cam Reddish.
Especially after, getting rid of Anthony Davis, you have to find somebody that's going to score, right? Anthony Davis was a primary guy on that team, so why not let it be Zion or even Cam Reddish? So the Duke Blue Devils had a lot of talent on their squad this past year, so that's 2 guys out of our mock draft that are going in the top 5s, or 3 guys, that are going in our top 5, so that's a really, really good. 60% of our top 5 is Duke. So I want to give a stat. He shot 267 threes last season, which is not as much, or he shot more threes than R.J. Barrett. When I said 237, that's how many R.J. Barrett shot, those amount of threes. But Kevin Reddish shot 33%. So that's not bad for college level, but as you get to the pros, the line moves back a little bit further. So.
Another thing I want to point out about his three-point shooting, it seems like in the NBA, quantity is starting to take precedence over quality. And what I mean by that is that they're shooting a lot of threes. In the year 2000, NBA teams only averaged 4.8 three attempts per game, 4.8. This year, teams averaged 32 three-point attempts. So they're averaging more. But the crazy thing about that stat is that in 2000, only shooting 4 per game, they averaged 35% accuracy on those shots. And in 2019, shooting 32 times per game, it's the same percentage, still only 35% from 3. So it's not like the shooting more means the percentage goes up. It just means that more attempts are worth 3 rather than 2. So I like Cam shooting a lot of threes.
It's a higher percentage, the 2 is a higher percentage shot, but the 3 is worth more. So it kind of evens itself out if you make it more than you are inside the arc. So the closer you are to the rim, of course, the higher percentage shot. But if you're Klay Thompson, you're Steph Curry, and you're making those shots like that, I think you're better off shooting 3. So
Right. Well, I'm really interested to see this next pick because I feel like I could predict what you would have done with number 1 and number 3, but I have no idea who you're taking here at number 5 with the Cavs. So who do you have?
So with the Cavs, obviously last year they took Colin Sexton in their lottery pick. They had a lottery pick last year, especially with LeBron leaving. So they took Colin Sexton, who's a good young point guard. Still has a little development to go, of course. But for my 5th pick, looking at their roster top to bottom, Kevin Love is on the tail end of his career, obviously, in my opinion. So I'm going to replace him or at least have somebody to complement him that can score as well and can defend and is athletic, like K. Love was young in his career out of UCLA. And I'm going to go with DeAndre Hunter to the Cavaliers at number 5. 21, mature in that aspect as far as the oldest person in this draft so far. That we've taken. He's a forward. Like I said, he's multidimensional. So he's 6'7". So he's kind of he's on the shorter end of being a forward. But with the small ball NBA, height doesn't matter anymore, it seems like. So his wingspan is an impressive 7'2". I mean, at 6'7", your wingspan 7'2", man, you can really defend somebody. So one thing that catches your eye really quick is his shooting ability off the catch or off a screen. He can really spot up. His size for his position is also a strength, just because of his strength as well. It really goes well with him. He is a good. I'm blanking. Why am I blanking?
It happens.
Oh my goodness, why am I blanking? But oh my goodness, this is bad. No, but his defense is really good, and we saw that in the NCAA tournament. Of course, they ended up winning the title. Virginia did. So I like DeAndre Hunter going to the Cavs to complement, like I said, K. Love as he's dying in his career, as he is falling down in his career. So Colin Sexton, that gives him another guy to pass the ball to for the Cavaliers. Another note. So he had 27 points and 9 rebounds in the championship game, and as we know, Virginia cheated to get there to beat Auburn. So,
No comment.
No, I'm not going to say that. They played their butts off, and like I said, yes, that was a foul, but it wouldn't have happened without the double dribble. So, without them calling the double dribble. So congratulations to the Virginia Cavaliers, the cheating Cavaliers. So,
I can tell you're not bitter.
I'm not at all. My player comp for DeAndre Hunter, him being 6'7" and can play defense really well, I'm going to go Kawhi Leonard. And we just saw him win a championship. Kawhi Leonard is a heck of a defender. He can guard, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, all 5 positions, if I'm going to tell the truth. I could also compare DeAndre Hunter to Draymond Green as well, because he can do that. I can do that. So Kawhi Leonard, I say Kawhi Leonard simply because of his scoring ability and his way to play the top 4 positions, and being 6'7", and just being able to move for his size is something that sticks out to me. So the Cavs are getting a really good player in DeAndre Hunter, in my opinion.
I'm rooting for DeAndre Hunter. I think he could be a really solid player. But I think the difference between him and Kawhi Leonard is that Kawhi Leonard had so much untapped potential in college.
Right.
And still needed to develop, and we've seen that he has developed. I think DeAndre Hunter is already a finished product, or very close to. So that's my argument against the Kawhi comparison. But my comparison for DeAndre Hunter was Andre Iguodala, someone that guards the best player on another team, can hit a clutch 3, can even do some ISO type stuff. But I wouldn't say Kawhi Leonard, although I do see your point, and I'm rooting for him to be great because I think he plays very hard. I really like his mindset on the court. So
very alpha-like, it seems to me. Very alpha-like. Although Ty Jerome and who's the other guy that got fouled? I can't think of his name. Kyle Guy. Yeah, that guy, the cheater. The cheater. But yeah, although Hunter was the alpha dog on that team, still. I think he'll have a great pro career. So the 6th pick, of course, is with the Phoenix Suns. So who you got with number 6?
Well, first off, I want to apologize to any Virginia fans who are listening.
We don't care.
For the record, I really liked their team and was happy they won. But for number 6, the Phoenix Suns, they need a point guard. They need a point guard. If this is how the draft plays out, it's going to be really tempting to take Jarrett Culver. But I think they need a point guard. And to me, the best point guard available is Coby White.
Oh, wow.
Coby White. So I'm going with him. And imagine putting De'Aaron Fox on the Suns. With him, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. I think that's what you're getting with Coby White. Let's look at their college stats. And De'Aaron Fox is my player comp for Coby White. They're both fast playmakers, can score and also create. De'Aaron Fox in college averaged 16 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. Coby White in college averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So basically the exact same stats in college. Both played for big blue blood programs in Kentucky and North Carolina. That's my comp. I think the Suns, it's a guaranteed good, solid point guard in Coby White. So that's my pick.
And he's pretty big for a point guard, being 6'5", and 190 pounds. His arms aren't as long, about as long as his body. So, but he's still a good player for the Suns. That'd be a very good pick for the Suns. So, some of the things I want to talk about him is his speed. His speed pops off really, really quick on tape, and watching the games, and he can shoot really well. So, 35.5% from three last season in college on 232 attempts. So, somewhat efficient player in college. Like I said, your better players are going to shoot about 36 to 37%. So, that's a pretty good percentage right there for Coby White. So. Is it De'Aaron Fox because of his athleticism, or is it
when they get a rebound, the ability to push the ball up the court and make a play? I see De'Aaron Fox, and that's the reason that the comparison is there, just the full court speed.
Okay, I got you. That makes sense then. That makes sense. So, 7th pick, Chicago Bulls. As we know, Zach LaVine was the player pretty much on that team. He was the only guy pretty much on that team. If you put him, you could basically put him 105, and he'd probably still be the only player doing something. So, no, he would have to be the only player doing something 105. But at times it felt like he was playing 105. So, with that pick, just to get the ball out of LaVine's hand and let him be more of a guy that they run sets for, and let somebody initiate plays. I'm going to say, although he only played very little for Vanderbilt, I'm going to just surprise the people and go with Darius Garland. Darius Garland, in my opinion, will probably be the number 2 point guard off the board. Like I said, he's a good shooter. He can initiate plays. His runners and floaters and his middle of the arc game is pretty impeccable. So his pick and roll is really well. The way he operates it, he's a smart guy. So he only played 5 games last season because of injury. So that is one thing for the Chicago Bulls to look out for. But I do think they're still getting a good player out of Vanderbilt. He's only 19. He's 6'2", 175, a 6'5" wingspan. Averaged 16 points per game in college, 30.8 rebounds per game, and 2.6 assists in, like I said, 5 games. So, so he shot 23 threes in 5 games last season. And, of course, that's a small sample size in 5 games, but he shot 47.8%, which is really, really good. So they're going to get them a good player in Darius Garland. So one thing, of course, he has to work on is his strength, being that he's so tiny. He's got to get stronger. And, of course, he's got to play. So if he can be durable, I think he's a good pickup for the Chicago Bulls. At number 8, we have the Atlanta Hawks. Of course, my GM across from me has to make that pick. So,
before I get to the Hawks pick, did you have a player comparison for Darius Garland?
Oh, man, how could I forget my player comp? Let me think. So, I'm going to go with another guy that just won a championship, and I'm going to go with Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry, of course, is a solid point guard. You guys hear me talk about him all the time. Kyle Lowry. But I think he's going to compare to Kyle Lowry simply because Kyle Lowry can shoot as well as he initiates. And that's just the type of player I see Darius Garland comparing to, which is not a bad comp. So that's my player comp.
Okay.
That's my player comp.
I like it. To me, Darius Garland, a lot of people have said Kyrie Irving is the player comparison, but I personally see more of Jeff Teague.
Okay.
Someone who can hit some threes, fast with the ball, solid, but ultimately not going to take you over the top. And so that's why he's a little lower on my list. But I will admit it's hard to judge based on the few games that he played in college. The one game that stuck out to me for him was at USC, where he went 3 of 5 from the 3-point line. He made all his free throws. He had 19 points and a pretty tough environment on the road across the country. But the other games were against weak competition, so it's hard to really judge. But like I said, I see more of Jeff Teague there. With the next pick, it's the Hawks, and I think they're getting great value here at number 8, where Jarrett Culver is still on the board.
Yes.
If the Hawks can get Jarrett Culver and have Trae Young, Herter, Collins, and now Jarrett Culver, that would be a really nice lineup in Atlanta. So I'm taking Jarrett Culver. My player comp for him is Jimmy Butler. I like him a lot. In watching the film, it did seem like most of his moves to the basket were just hard dribble and then spin move. But that seems to be his go-to move, and that's fine. And I'm sure the NBA coaches will help him develop more moves, and he probably has more. But that's just something that stuck out to me, was a lot of spinning, and it worked pretty well. But you saw in the national title game against DeAndre Hunter that he was shut down a little bit. Now DeAndre Hunter is an incredible defender, but still, Jarrett Culver averaged 6.4 rebounds per game, which I think is really strong for a shooting guard to get over 6 rebounds per game. I like that. He's got a really nice all-around game, and ultimately would be a great prospect for the Hawks. So with number 8, Jarrett Culver.
Very good pick right there. Jarrett Culver, I was really excited about him just because of his shooting ability. I forgot he was even on the board. Goodness, I should have thought about that, but it's okay. We're still getting good players on this side, so we're all good. But that's a good player pickup for the Hawks, especially with Trae Young being so young, no pun intended. With him being so young and needing another guy alongside him, that's a really good guy. So next pick, the Washington Wizards, and I'm going to go with obviously I'm going to go back and talk about the Wizards, but John Wall tore his Achilles dancing in his house. I know that's embarrassing, but no, I don't know how he tore it, but they say he tore it at home. But him being hurt made Bradley Beal step up, and of course, are the Wizards going to re-sign him this offseason is the real question, which I think they will. Bradley Beal's a good young two-guard in the league. I can't put out my list of two guards right now, but if I was, he'd be probably my top 7. So, but if I'm the Wizards GM and I'm drafting, I'm going to take a young guy from overseas. This is our first foreign player. This is our first player from overseas, from another country. So I'm going to go with Sekou Doumbouya, or Doumbouya, who I would pick if I was the Wizards. He's a athletic 3. He's at 6'10", and 230. He's an athletic 3, and if I must say so myself, obviously his stats were not too great, being in a semi or in a pro league overseas since he was so young at 18. But he averaged 7.8 points per game, 3.3 rebounds per game, and shot 34.3% from 3 on 67 attempts, which is not a lot. But his size and athleticism stick out when you watch him. At 6'10", he's so versatile, being so long and athletic. He can play 1 through 5. No, he can play. He can really play 2 through 5. So, I like his athletic ability, like I said, and him being able to defend. I love defense. Come on now, I love defense. But if I was to compare him to somebody in the league, I love these championship guys for some reason. I keep on going back to the Raptors, but Siakam, I'm finally saying his name right.
See that.
Pascal Siakam. I see that just because of what Pascal did this NBA Finals was give them a glimpse of what he can be. An athletic guy that can score when he wants to out of the post. He can spot up mid-range. He can also shoot from deep. That's something that Sekou lacks, but I think he can develop it just because of his stroke from inside the arc. Pascal. I see Pascal Siakam as his player comp for that pick. Sekou Doumbouya. Let me say that name right. So, my the number 10 pick, of course, Atlanta has 2 top 10 picks, so they'll pick at number 10. So, who'd you go with number 10 with Atlanta?
Well, I really like that Wizards pick, by the way. I like the defense. He's almost got a 9-foot standing reach, and his free throw percentage was 77%, which shows that he's got a good shooting form, and he's got some touch around the rim. And so I think he's got potential for sure. That's a good pick by the Wizards. Okay. Number 10, if it plays out this way and the Hawks get Jarrett Culver, and they have Herter, and they have Trae Young, Collins, and they have this great team, I think that they need a force down low or just someone that can really affect shots and be a solid center for them.
Yep.
And he also fits in with the three-point shooting. So the number 10 pick for me.
Don't surprise me.
For me would be Bol Bol.
Oh, man.
So he.
Oh, man.
He shot 52% from 3, which would fit right in with the Hawks. And then he averaged 3 blocks per game, which is something they need.
Yes.
21 points, 10 rebounds. He's 7'3". He's got a standing reach of almost 10 feet.
Dude.
It's 9.75,
wow.
Which is incredible. And again, I think that could be a missing piece for them. And people question his durability. Maybe he could potentially be injured because he's so tall and skinny. But I think it's worth the risk, especially if you get Jarrett Culver, who's more of a guaranteed solid player. It's worth taking the risk here at number 10. So my player comp for him would be, it's really hard to find one.
His dad?
His dad probably. But with the three-point shooting, I see a little Porzingis.
That's a new dimension, yes.
Kristaps Porzingis. So that's my pick for the Hawks at 10.
Man, he's a stick, though, Elson. He's a stick. What are you gonna do with him as his training regimen? I mean, just feed him? Is that about it? I mean,
If he was on my diet, he would be okay, but he probably eats a little healthier than me.
Me too.
But if he wasn't so skinny, he'd be a top 5 pick. But he is, and so there are some questions. But again, with 2 picks in the top 10, I think he's worth a risk for one of them for the Hawks.
So why him over Taco Fall or Jackson Hayes as another prospect at the 5?
Yeah. Jackson Hayes, there was a stat that I really did not like. I think it was his Jackson Hayes didn't attempt a 3-point shot.
Okay.
And I think fitting in with the Hawks, you need to be able to shoot threes, so that's one reason. And then Taco Fall, I don't think he shoots threes very well. And Bol Bol, throughout the year, I think played a little bit better competition. But Taco Fall is solid as well. Bol Bol had more hype coming out of high school, and I think is used to more pressure. And
right.
That would just be my personal selection.
Okay. Bol Bol with the 10th pick to the Hawks. Bol Bol and Jarrett Culver as your top 10 picks for the Hawks, your top 2 picks. That's a good squad right there. So you got Trae Young and a young point guard who can play, and Jarrett Culver at the 2 to the 3. And Bol Bol, if he can stay healthy, do you think he'll stay durable?
I don't know. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
I picked him at 10, so might as well say yes.
Right. I've got some of the best training staff in the world in the NBA. So, right. So, at number 11, the Minnesota Timberwolves have that pick. And last season they traded away Jimmy Butler for Sark and another bum. I shouldn't say bum because they're all NBA players. So, but Sark was the main piece in that in that trade for Jimmy Butler. But I feel like they need somebody to replace the production that Jimmy Butler had, and of course they weren't right when Jimmy Butler left. But at number 11, I see the Minnesota Timberwolves taking Nassir Little.
Nice.
Nassir, although his consistency wasn't necessarily there last season, he can still score. Physically, he's very gifted at 6'6". 225 pounds. His wingspan is 7'1", which is impressive to be 6'6". So his length, that means he's a really good defender. But his ability to break down defenders off the dribble is not that great. So that's something he needs to work on. overall, some strengths. Like I said, his wingspan is obviously one. His athletic ability is another. Being able to jump 38 inches off the ground is really impressive. Another one, his potential to guard more than one position also gives him validity as this pick to the Timberwolves. So at the 2 guard, on this team, you'd have Jeff Teague at the 1, Nassir Little at the 2, predicting, of course. Number 3 at the 3, you'd have Andrew Wiggins at the 4. You'd possibly have Anthony. I can't even think of that man's name. Carl Anthony Towns. And at the 5, Gorgie Ding if he's going to play at the 5. But Carl Anthony Towns will probably be at the 5. So that's a pretty good team, especially if you add a player like Nassir Little. If I'm going to compare him to one, it's a player that's not in the league anymore, which is not a good comparison if I'm going to pick. But he was a high draft. He was also a good he was a lottery pick in his draft as well, and a player that the Timberwolves drafted, actually, Shabazz Muhammad. I'm going to compare him to him because Shabazz was athletic out of I'm trying to think. It wasn't UCLA. It wasn't UCLA.
It was.
Oh, it was UCLA. I had to think that off the top of my head. But Shabazz, I would compare to him because Shabazz was a decent scorer out of college, but he didn't develop into a great pro. So I'm worried about Nassir here. But I think he'll be fine with the Timberwolves, especially him not having to do everything right off the bat and him just being able to fit in and learn and be able to be himself. And his teammates were Coby White, or his teammate was Coby White. So overall, I feel like Nassir is going to have a good time in Minnesota. At 12, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm trying to pick twice in a row. At 12, the Charlotte Hornets have that pick. So who you got going to the Hornets?
This is probably the pick where everyone should ignore me. I'm a big Michael Jordan fan, and I'm also a big Indiana fan. And so I'm hoping that Michael Jordan selects Romeo Langford from Indiana. And before you judge it too harshly, let me read you some stats about Romeo Langford. So my player comp for him is DeMar DeRozan, a player that can find a spot, likes to score, and a solid mid-range game. Needs to work on his 3, but he could do that. But the main stat I'm going to point out for Romeo is just the McDonald's All-American game, his senior year. I think that it's easy to have great stats when you're the only good player on a team, but when you're on a team that is stacked and has a lot of other talent, who can rise to the top and really separate themselves? Now, in this McDonald's All-American game, on his team, Zion Williamson was on his team, R.J. Barrett, Darius Garland, and Coby White. And yet Romeo was the second leading scorer. He had 19 points, 7 of 14 shooting. He had 3 of 8 three-point shooting. But just watching the game, he stood out. He stood out to me. He had a rough year at Indiana. People will use the excuse of injury and that he was playing hurt all year. But I'm not a huge injury guy. I think if you're on the court, you need to be accountable for what you do. But I also know after being an Indiana fan for so long, it's been a rough stretch for Indiana. It's hard to go there and do incredible your freshman year.
Right. The pressure is high.
Yes, very. And they were looking to him to be the savior of the program.
Right.
But again, I look back to watching him in high school, watching him during that McDonald's All-American game, and he really stood out. Now, if Kemba Walker leaves, you need a guy that comes in and is confident and has a lot of hype and willing to take on being possibly the best player. So Romeo Langford could be that guy. And if Kemba stays, then you need another guy who can maybe take some pressure off of him and be willing to shoot a late shot clock attempt. And I think Romeo could be that guy in either scenario. So at number 12, it's solid value. That's my pick, Romeo Langford.
And going back to how storied Indiana is, very storied program, of course. And Romeo, like you said, had a lot of pressure on him to come in and perform right away. So, no, he didn't have Bobby Knight throwing chairs at him, but he did have pressure. So, but that's a really good pick. That's a really good pick. I like that. Romeo, I like Romeo a lot. So, at 13, my final pick for this lottery is the Miami Heat, and a player that not many people are talking about going in the lottery. He's just right outside of it. Is Kevin Porter. I'd take Kevin Porter here as a Miami Heat's pick, simply because you need somebody that can score, and he'll probably play the 2. Although at USC he was more of a 3. You need somebody that can take control and score. Hassan Whiteside's a very good player, but after a while you need some shooters. Justice Winslow has been somewhat disappointing in his development so far. So also I've been seeing recently where they're trying to trade for Andrew Wiggins. So I think Kevin Porter would be a really good pick for the Heat. He averaged 9.5 points per game, had 4 rebounds per game. 41.2% from 3 on 68 attempts last season. So his size at 6'5.5" is a plus for him, and his length with his wingspan being 6'9" is also a plus for him. That's why I see him playing the 2, because he is a shorter guy. His athleticism off the bounce is really good to me. He's a good isolation player. He doesn't mind breaking down a defender. His jumping ability, like I said, his vertical inch jump. What am I talking about? His his vertical is 34 inches. So very, very good athleticism with him. He's a natural scorer. Like I said, the Heat needs somebody that can score. Dwayne Wade was a long-time fixture for Miami with his scoring ability, somebody that can drive to the rim and finish and also somewhat shoot. So that'd be my pick for them. Something he needs to get better on as far as, in my opinion, his consistency. He wasn't very consistent as far as his shot selection and as far as him scoring as much. So he needs to be more consistent. Sometimes he's too ball dominant, so that can be something that can hurt as well, especially going to a team that has a pretty good big man in Hassan Whiteside, who gets bullied by Joel Embiid. But that's okay. Joel Embiid. But I don't know. Eric Spoelstra, a lot of questions about is he willing to be coached. Eric Spoelstra's a really good coach. He can bring the best out of any of them. He's a top 5 coach in the league. Of course, I know he's not my guy across from me is not going to agree with this, but Steve Kerr is actually a pretty good basketball coach. Although
he is a good coach.
He's a very good basketball coach. In my opinion, it's hard when you have all that talent on one team. Sidetracking here, if you have all that talent on one team, it's hard to reel it in. But also, again, that's just natural ability. So, like I say, I could have coached that team blind. So Kermit the Frog could have coached that team, but it still takes a guy that can draw up X's and O's and somebody to listen to him, because all that talent has to gel too. So I do think Steve Kerr is a good coach.
Yeah, I think Steve Kerr is a good coach as well. I would just like to see what he could do with a team that's not so talented, not so stacked.
That's fair.
That's the only thing for me.
That's fair.
But with the last pick of the lottery, the Boston Celtics, if Kyrie Irving leaves and Terry Rozier possibly leaves, I think they need a solid point guard who can dish the ball to Tatum and Brown. And I think the pick here for them, a really good value. He's actually number 10 on my board.
Okay.
But Nickeil Alexander-Walker from Virginia Tech is the pick here. And I know I mentioned how De'Aaron Fox and Coby White both had identical college stats of 16, 4, and 4. Well, Nickeil Alexander-Walker actually falls right in that as well. He averaged 16, 4, and 4 as well. He's got an 8'6" standing reach. He's 6'5.5", 200 pounds. A really solid player and a good spot-up shooter who I think would fit in nicely with the Celtics. And he doesn't have a gigantic ego. He's not going to want to come in and take the ball from Tatum and Brown. He's going to want to dish it to them, score when he can, and be a really solid player for a long time. So I think it's a great value pick for the Celtics there, and that's it.
That's a good pick right there. And a lot of people have him going late in the first round, and I agree that that's a good pick for the Celtics. So I didn't even give a player comp for Kevin Porter, but if I was to give a player comp for Kevin Porter, I'd go with Clyde Drexler, just because of his scoring ability and his athleticism and his bounce. Clyde was, of course, a legend, and I don't expect anybody to, of course, replace him. But if I was to compare Kevin Porter to somebody, it'd be Clyde. So
that's great. That's a great pick. And my player comp for Nickeil Alexander-Walker is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Just a solid player. He had a great rookie year with the Clippers, and Nickeil could do the same thing with the Celtics.
So look at that, 2 guys with the last name Alexander dash something or Xander something dash or whatever it may
Right.
be. I don't know.
Maybe that's what did it for me.
Yeah, I think so. But some great insight here. You heard it here first. That's our top 14 picks for this lottery. The draft, like I said, is Thursday night. I'm prepared to see a lot of great players get picked. Your top 5 is pretty much, or your top 3 is pretty much set. So if we were to go back and run through the list of players that were picked, if we were to go back and run through the list of players that were picked, of number 1 to the Pelicans, Zion Williamson. Number 2 to the Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant. Number 3 to the New York Knicks, RJ Barrett. And number 4 going to the Pelicans, Cam Reddish. Number 5 to the Cavs, DeAndre Hunter. Number 6 to the Suns, Coby White. Number 7 to the Bulls, Darius Garland. Number 8 to the Hawks, Jarrett Culver. Number 9 to the Wizards, Sekou Doumbouya. Number 10 to the Hawks, that was number 9 to the Wizards. Number 10 to the Hawks, Bol Bol. Number 11 to the Wolves, the T-Wolves, the Timberwolves, Minnesota Timberwolves. Nassir Little. Number 12 to the Hornets, Romeo Langford. Number 13 to the Miami Heat, Kevin Porter. And number 14 to the Boston Celtics, the great Boston Celtics, Nickeil Alexander. I almost said Alexander Hamilton. Nickeil Alexander-Walker would be that pick. So some great insight. I appreciate Marshall joining me on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It was a fun episode. I appreciate you, man. This was a fun one. It was a really good insight from my NBA correspondent here. So next, I'm looking forward to talking about the NBA free agency with you and predicting, what's going to happen if you're cool with that. So
Sounds good.
The NBA free agency is about to get wild, and I'm excited for it. I shake in my boots every time I think about it. So, but to end off this podcast, you guys heard it here first. Your favorite podcast is sponsored by no one. So, of course, I've got to end this podcast off with the quote of the day. And it's from Dalai Lama. I love me some Dalai Lama. But the quote says, "Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive." I agree with that. They're luxuries. They are. You don't need love, or you don't have to be compassionate. What am I talking about? I'm crazy, man. No, let me read it again, because I'm doing this on the fly. I apologize.
Clearly.
Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. Oh my goodness, I just read that backwards, man. I can't believe it. But yes, you need love and compassion. Everybody needs some love in their life, and everybody needs compassion. Everybody has a loved one, and everybody has somebody that they're compassionate for. So love everybody, man. Give back and be compassionate to others, because, like I said, you don't know what people are going through. I say that all the time. You don't know what somebody's going through. So take care of everybody. This was episode number 13. I didn't even mention that. This was episode number 13 of the podcast, Recurring Thoughts. Look out for episode 14. I'm your host, Keegan Koger, here with Marshall Ellison. We did the 2019 NBA mock draft. Look out for the draft coming Thursday night. I believe is at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central. Of course, it's going to be on primetime, ESPN. So look out for that. Watch it. Love NBA. Love football. I'm your host, Keegan Koger. This was Recurring Thoughts. Peace.